Hello, welcome to Support Life, a program focusing on social issues from a life-affirming perspective. I'm Geraldine Lee, your host, and our guest is Babette Francis. She's a pro-life activist. Hello, Babette.
Hello, Geraldine. It's a pleasure to be on your program.
Welcome. It's great to hear about your life, and could you tell us more about how you got involved in pro-life and a bit of your history?
Well, I'm Indian by birth, and I met my Australian husband on a ship going to London.
Oh, wow.
So it was a shipboard romance, and we were married in London at Brompton Oratory and came back to live in Australia. I had a very happy marriage. My husband sadly died 4 years ago, but we had 55 years together. And we had 8 children, 20 grandchildren,
wow,
and 4 great-grandchildren. And I was so grateful for having such a large and lovely family. So when the women's movement in Australia became active in 1974, I thought they were articulating some of the real problems that women face, but coming up with the wrong answers, the wrong solutions.
I see.
I didn't think abortion was a solution to anything. In fact, besides the fact that it was taking the life of an unborn child, it also created new serious problems for the mother. So I became very concerned, and I started writing articles in the media. And at the same time, I was also appointed by the Hema government as a member of the Victorian Committee on Equal Opportunity in Schools. And that was looking at the fact that girls and boys didn't do the same subjects. Boys tended to do more maths and science, and girls were doing more humanities and home economics. I'm a science graduate myself in microbiology and chemistry, so I had some ideas on how to encourage girls to do more science. But the other members of the committee were very focused on feminist solutions, so-called feminist solutions. Yes. They were promoting lesbianism and abortion on demand, and I didn't believe this was the way to encourage girls to do maths and science. Yes. So I wrote a minority report. And a lot of women around Australia got in touch with me when the minority report was published along with the majority report and said, we must do something about this. And eventually we formed the organization Endeavour Forum, which is a pro-life, pro-family women's organization.
Oh, it's fantastic. What you were saying that people don't realize the negative effects on women. What are some of those?
Well, there's tremendous grief. I don't think a normal person can kill anybody, and particularly not kill your own unborn child, without feeling a tremendous sense of guilt and grief and loss. And this manifests itself in a lot of psychological, psychiatric symptoms. Dr. Priscilla Coleman, a psychiatrist, has written extensively on this, and she says at least 10% of women suffer really serious psychological problems as a result of abortion. And another fairly high percentage also suffer relatively minor problems of chronic depression and so on. The serious problems really almost amount to loss of life. A lot of studies have shown that women who have induced abortions have a much worse life expectancy in the few years following the procedure than women who were either not pregnant or women who have given birth. And the other large percentage also suffered depression and marital problems, failure to bond with subsequent children, and infertility. They often can't conceive, Maybe the baby you aborted will be the only baby you ever have. Women should consider this. So these are some of the serious problems. The other one we focus a lot on, and I'm particularly interested in this because I'm a science graduate, is the increased risk of breast cancer caused by induced abortion. And the reason for that is that before a woman has a baby, before she becomes pregnant, she's got what are called type 1 and 2 lobules in her breast. These are immature cells which are vulnerable to cancer. And these multiply in the early stages of pregnancy, so she's got more cells that are vulnerable to cancer.
I see.
So if the pregnancy is terminated before 32 weeks, she's left with these more vulnerable cells.
I see.
After 32 weeks, these cells stabilize and mature, and they become type 3 and 4, which are not vulnerable to cancer.
I see.
So this is the reason why women who have induced abortions have a higher incidence of breast cancer.
Yes, it's great to have your science background and writing this magazine and be into the latest research, because that's so important to come on a scientific with all this research.
Yes, I'm particularly focused on this issue because it's something that the medical profession and the cancer community, cancer specialists, they're so intimidated by the feminist movement that they won't even tell women this information, even things in which there's general agreement. For example, I don't think most women know, or it's not publicized, that if you don't have a baby, you're at higher risk of breast cancer. This is regardless of whether you've had an abortion or not. Not having children is a risk factor. And also, the younger you are when you have your first full-term pregnancy, the more protection you get from breast cancer.
I see.
And the more babies you have, the more protection you get. And the longer you breastfeed, the more protection you get. All these are contraindications for induced abortion. But women are not told these basic facts on which there's no disagreement in the medical profession.
Yes, it's amazing how science that, really supports life, isn't it?
It does. And the other way science has come to be on our side, the pro-life side, is with ultrasound. For so long, the feminist movement and the abortion industry, which are making millions out of the problems of women, kept telling women it's just a clump of cells, it's not a baby, it's just a menstrual tissue, a lot of just plain out blatant falsehoods. Yeah. Well, ultrasound has come to show the truth of it, and you can see that even at 6 weeks gestation, it's beginning to look like a little baby.
We've just got to go for a break now. You're watching Support Life. We'll be back in a few minutes. Hello, welcome back to Support Life. My name is Geraldine Lee, your host, and our guest has been Babette Francis. Hello, Babette.
Hi, Geraldine.
You've been doing wonderful political activist work and starting that magazine, Endeavour Forum, and also you've been working and writing articles in United Nations sort of work.
Yes, Endeavour Forum publishes a newsletter, a quarterly newsletter. We also have a free email news service which goes to a lot of people, and we hold several public meetings a year. But we found in the course of our work that a lot of the policies that were being implemented in Australia were coming down from the United Nations. And so we decided we had to look into this, and we started attending some of the UN conferences on population and particularly the Commission on the Status of Women. And we found that a number of UN bureaucrats, mostly based in New York, were devising these draft programs and conventions and treaties, and really the women of Australia knew very little about what was being legislated in their name. So we decided to apply for accreditation as a non-government organization known as NGOs to the UN. And after a tortuous process, which took several years, we finally got the accreditation.
That's amazing.
That was in 2000. And since then, we've been attending particularly the Commission on the Status of Women meetings in New York every year. And because we're accredited, we're also able to run what they call parallel events or workshops just outside the UN buildings.
Oh, fantastic.
And where we invite a lot of women, a lot of third world women, who have no idea of what the UN is legislating or what their own governments are doing. So we run several of those workshops every year in New York.
Which are you the only Australian? Like, are there other countries that do this?
Oh yes, there's big demand to run these workshops. But from Australia, we're the only pro-life organisation in Australia that's accredited there. The Catholic Women's League is also accredited.
That's fantastic.
And they have recently started running a parallel event. But they are not as free as we are, because being a Catholic organization, they're under the control of the authority of the bishops,
yes,
which is not a bad thing, but
so yours is interdenominational, or interdenominational Christian?
We're interdenominational, yes. We include all Christian denominations and a few Jews as well, and a few who are, secular. But we define ourselves as basically a Christian organization, because we think it's the Christian ethic that has done the most in terms of world history to raise the status of women.
Yes.
Women didn't have a very good status before the advent of Christianity, and
people forget that, isn't it? They always blame the church.
That's right.
And say that the church is oppressing women.
And that's another whole topic.
Yes.
But
you should write a book on that. Have you got some books on that?
Absolutely. But in Christianity, in which it's an amazing concept that God chose his partnership with the human race to be through a woman, the mother of Jesus. So it really enhanced the status of women completely.
Yes. So within the United Nations, what pro-life work do you do particularly?
Well, we regularly run a parallel event on the increased incidence of breast cancer caused by induced abortion. And we have a breast surgeon, Dr. Angela Lanfranchi, who is the president of the Breast Cancer Prevention Institute in the United States. And she's one of our speakers. Also... and she talks about the hormonal effects, how the breast cells develop, and the effect of high levels of estrogen on breast development, and how this produces more breast cells and makes a woman more vulnerable to breast cancer. Our other speaker there is Professor Joel Brind, who is a professor of endocrinology at Baruch College in New York. And he is a statistician, and he presents the statistics, worldwide statistics. And it's really iniquitous that this information has been kept from women all over the world. The first studies on this issue were done in 1957 in Japan, which legalized abortion very soon after the end of World War II.
So if you want to decrease abortion, decrease cancer, decrease abortion.
Yes,
so,
and have more babies.
That's right. And that would
breastfeed them.
Yes, and that needs to be out in all magazines.
Absolutely, and that's why we feel so concerned when especially young girls are taken to the abortion clinic, either by their parents or their boyfriends, and aborted. Because although it's not ideal for a young girl in her teens to have a baby, it still protects her from what is the biggest killer of women, premenopausal women. Breast cancer is a major killer of premenopausal women, other than road accidents. And it's the third major cause of death for women postmenopausal. The others are heart disease and stroke. But when a young girl is taken to the abortion clinic, I feel like running up to her and saying, have this baby, it'll protect you from what is, a major risk factor in your life. Because the pregnancy and the childbirth in Australia certainly is not going to kill her. We've got good medical attention, good health facilities. And
You're doing
she
wonderful
can give
work.
the baby up for adoption if she doesn't want to keep it.
That's right.
The pregnancy will give her protection against breast cancer, and they're not even told this.
Seems like a common sense way of going.
Absolutely.
I know also in your heart there's a desire for unity among more pro-life groups. Is that
Yes,
true?
I think there is a desire for unity, but and I get concerned if their quarrels spill over into the public domain. But the problem is so vast. There are like 90 to 100,000 abortions in Australia every year.
Wow.
So I think we need a multiplicity of approaches, and no one person or organization can do everything. For example, I think there's a role for pregnancy support services, which are not political, because politics frightens some people away,
Yes.
Like a woman who's seeking help with her pregnancy mightn't go to what's called a Right to Life group, because she doesn't want to be politicized. But she'll go to a pregnancy support group, which is not political, but just works in helping women.
Yes.
And sometimes the political groups get cross with the pregnancy support thing. They say, why don't you come and support us in this particular whatever, But I think there's a role for all of us. And there are others who just concentrate on prayer.
Yes.
And some of the political groups say, well, we can't have prayer because we're secular, So
There's definitely a role.
There's a role for everybody.
Might have to interrupt. On that note, we'll go for our break now. You've been watching Support Life. We're going for a break now. We'll be back in a few minutes. Hello, welcome back to Support Life. I'm Geraldine Lee, your host, and our guest is Babette Francis. She's a political activist. Welcome back.
Hi again, Geraldine.
You were talking about your desire for more unity in pro-life groups. Have you got some ideas and some strategies to unite them all?
Well, not just for unity among the pro-life groups, but I think something that all the individuals can do who belong to pro-life groups is to join political parties, you know, not necessarily as a member of the organization, but as individuals, whatever political party is nearest to your views. Because a lot of the decisions that are made in the, what I call the pro-abortion area, are made by politicians in parliaments, state parliament and federal parliament, which are not really put to the people. They're made by these individual MPs, and unless one can influence the pre-selection of these individuals and the resolutions that come up to the political party, the pro-life organizations have very little power in the legislative area. So I think it's very important that everyone involved in pro-life work should belong to a political party and should accept the sometimes tedious task of attending branch meetings and, you know, with things that mightn't interest you, you know, like where you put a road or a school or something like that, which may not be vitally important to you, but you've got to put up with that to get the confidence of the branch members so that when you want to put forward a resolution, they will take you seriously.
I see. This is like the local Liberal, you know, Labour,
and there are a lot of minor Christian parties which are very good, you know, which are thoroughly pro-life, you know, like
Family First,
Family First, DLP, Australian Christians.
Oh, I see. So it just belong
Rise
to
Up
one.
Australia. There are a lot of minor parties there, but my preference is that you join a major party because that's where it's through them that the Liberal and National Party, the coalition, and the ALP
members of Parliament, chat to them at those parties and sort of influence them that way.
Yes, you have more influence, I think, in a
What
major
about
party.
visiting your local MP? That's not as good as actually belonging to the party.
That's right. It's not enough to just write to your local
or go and visit him.
MP,
It's not.
you know,
that's not going to
because
change things.
He may not have, as an individual, have that much power. But if you're a member of the branch, you would have a voice in pre-selecting who is the MP when the pre-selection process comes up. So it's tremendously important that you...
That's good to know. People should know that more.
And as far as unity in the pro-life organizations is concerned, I think, as I've said, the problem is so vast that we should agree that different groups have a different focus, a different emphasis, and not to criticize them publicly, but to accept that that's their area of work and to either join them or take up your own area. Maybe you're political, or you just want to concentrate on prayer or on pregnancy support, or you want to be a political activist, or you want to be a writer. Do what you're good at. Join the organization where your skills would be most appropriate.
Yeah, that sounds good, you know, because you're right, it's multifaceted.
And we're dealing with the human frailty. We can't always achieve the ideal, but we can always work at it, you know.
That's
aim
right.
For it.
I remember from school that we had to look at a picture and see it from all different perspectives, from a geography, scientist, theologian point of view, and if you can get to all the different angles,
that's right. Well,
then you get a bigger picture.
The other thing is that regardless of which political party we belong to, we should support those pro-life politicians who really stick their necks out to, you know, to proclaim their support for the unborn child. You know, one such politician at the moment is Senator Cory Bernardi. He's written a wonderful book, The Conservative Revolution, in which he just says that the abortion culture is a culture of death. And he needs support because he's a Liberal senator, but he's being not only attacked by the feminists and the pro-abortionists, but also within some elements in his own party. So he really needs our support. And the other one is Reverend Fred Nile in New South Wales. He's a member of the upper house in New South Wales, and he has been consistently pro-life. And he's promoted Zoe's Law, which is deals with the situation of a unborn baby who's killed in a road accident, not intentionally, but by maybe the careless fault of a driver or something. And he's said that this unborn baby should be recognized in the accident, not just as part of the mother, but as an individual in her own right. I think Zoe was nearly 8 months gestation when she was killed in this accident, and it's very hurtful to her mother and her parents that she's not recognized as a person being, who died in that accident.
That's right.
So these are the politicians we could support.
Yeah.
And if you go to our website, you'll see we have got Senator Bernardi speaking at our birthday celebration.
You're going to be running an event soon.
Yes, we are. We're celebrating our 35th birthday.
And when's that?
It's on the 31st of January, and Senator Bernardi is our keynote
The one
speaker.
who wrote the book.
The one who's the author of the book, The Conservative Revolution.
Oh, there's so much to know about the pro-life. You have such a big, wealth of information in the pro-life.
Well, he's a very courageous politician because he set it all out in his book, and because he was so courageous and open about his views, he actually, I think, lost his position on the front bench in the Liberal Party in the cabinet. So he's someone who's prepared to sacrifice his career for principles, and we should cherish those politicians who are willing to do that. We don't have too many of them.
Oh, definitely. I mean, and it's good that I've had a greater insight on how to influence.
Yes, it's very important, as I've said, to be involved in the political process, both in Australia and at the UN. So few pro-lifers even know what's going on at the UN. For example, I remember at one UN conference there was a motion by the abortion industry that all medical students had to be trained in abortion procedures. Now, there are a lot of medical students who wouldn't want to be involved in an abortion, and they could learn as much without participating in an abortion by learning how to deal with the miscarriages, a natural miscarriage, how you help the woman, the procedures in that case. So there's no need for them to be trained in abortion procedures. Anyway, we managed to stop that one by...
You're amazing what you've done with your information, and there's so much more to know. We must have you to come back to our program.
I'd love to come back, Geraldine.
Oh, you've been fantastic, Babette, and suddenly increased my knowledge.
Thank you for having me on.
Yeah, no, and I hope that your work will continue in pro-life work and your Endeavour Forum magazine. How often does it come out?
It comes out 4 times a year, and we also have a free email news service.
Fantastic.
So you can just get onto our website and contact us for the information.
So thank you so much, Babette, and goodbye and God bless you.
Thank you.
You've been watching Support Life. Thank you, and tune in to us next week. God bless you.